Joe just responded to the email that he's having technical difficulties and he requested that we wait a minute for the architect to join. Would y'all like to recess for just 5 minutes and come back, or just hold on?
I think it's fine to recess for 5 minutes.
Okay, so we'll come back at around 10:21. Thanks.
Hey Joe, is there anyone else that needs to access in the meeting to present this case?
Hello. Hell yeah, this is Seneca Tucson. I'm sorry, I was having a lot of trouble getting in. I tried through Zoom, so I called in.
Okay, very good, Seneca. We decided to give you a few minutes to join in, so the committee's prepared to come back at 10:21, so just in about 3 minutes.
Okay, and then and we have Daniel, the architect for the project, trying to get in as well.
All right, I just sent Joe an email about using the meeting passcode and ID to get into the meeting. Did you all see that?
Joe, are you here?
Joe is on. He's experiencing technical difficulties, though. It seems as though you're muted, Joe. Are you able to just
Yeah, I was on the phone with the architect. He's having like a family emergency right now, and he was asking if we could possibly come back in like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not sure if Jose is on.
I am.
Okay.
That would be up to the committee to see if we can resume at 10:35 to allow the architect to join. It seems as though we have a lot of the project team on already. So was he the one planning to present?
Yeah, I think Daniel was going to give the overview of the project. And we were just here basically to kind of, Joe and I are doing the civil, and then Jose's doing the landscape for the project, landscape architecture. So, but I mean, if we reconvene at 10:21, I guess I can give my best shot between Joe and I for a description of the project.
I'm open to any suggestions what the committee wants and what the design team feels comfortable with.
Okay. Hey Joe, can you confirm with it's 10:21 right now?
Daniel asked for 15 minutes. He said there was something going on at his daughter's school, and he needed to go check and make sure that she was okay. So he said that he would be on in 15 minutes.
Okay.
So it seems like it would be best if we made a motion to recess until 10:45, just to give enough time. I just want to make sure everyone on the fellow committee members have the time if we recess for another 20 minutes.
The other option would
Our,
defer this to the next meeting. Or have the,
I,
you can go ahead and just present what they have. Do we have any motions from the committee members?
I'm okay with postponing until 10:45. I'll make a motion to do that.
I can do that as well, so I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways to reconvene at 10:45. And a second by HDLC, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
we will reconvene at 10:45,
we appreciate it, y'all.
of course.
Thank you.
Okay, the time is now 10:45. Is the applicant prepared to present?
Hey, Haley, I'm gonna interject because I just kind of want to flag a little more things from staff perspective, but I did want to be sure the applicant was here before we proceeded.
Okay. And I got an email from Miguel saying he's waiting to be let in, but it appears you're in, Miguel. Uh, Are you also trying to call in? You're good? Okay, Miguel's good.
Can y'all hear Miguel? I can't hear him.
No, I can't hear Miguel.
No. No. Sometimes you have to get off and then get back on for the sound to work.
So I see that Daniel has joined us. Daniel, I hope everything's okay for you.
It
Um,
is. I appreciate it. Thank
Good.
you.
Good, very good.
Sorry
We're,
for the
we're just gonna wait 1 second for one of the committee members to log back in.
okay.
And Joseph, who's the CPC staff member, he's gonna give a brief overview. And then your team will have 10 minutes to present.
Okay.
Do we want to give Miguel another minute, or do we want to go ahead and get started?
No, he's
Okay.
logging in now.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's see.
Alrighty, Joseph.
All right, so now that we are back at it and had a moment to breathe, we'll just kind of, as they say, start over. So this project is currently design review 4321. It has been reviewed by through our office through different PZAs and design reviews, but we are reviewing it for what has been submitted to us, and any other context that either the applicant or other committee members can provide will of course influence our discussion and ultimately, I assume, our recommendation. So upon a little more research in the time that we had, it does appear that I'm going to pull up a site plan now, so just bear with me, that as the site is laid out, it has been determined that that St. Bernard Avenue, the St. Bernard Avenue frontage is the front yard, that Florida Avenue frontage is the corner side yard, sorry, and that Frey Place Avenue is as well a corner side yard, and that the Portis Place side is the rear yard for our purposes. And so the applicant appears to meet the base zoning regulations in terms of setbacks and bulk regulations. There are a couple building design standards and site design standards, like secondary access points from the rear yard and kind of oriented towards the corner, as well as the biggest point that in Article 22, Section 22.A.B.2.B, I think I said that right. Parking is prohibited between the street line and the nearest point of the front facade in the C1 district. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the applicant is going to talk about that. And Danny, I have your the documentation you submitted, so I don't know if we want to go to that after the applicant presents, but those are kind of the main standards that are sticking out from staff perspective at this time.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. The applicant now has 10 minutes to present.
Okay. So yes, this is our project, and as stated before, I'm sorry I'm having audio issues. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We're definitely, this is a new development, and I'm sorry, some of the other presenters' information was cutting in and out, but we're definitely seeing what we can do to, I understand the original design for the owner was over budget, and this design was, if you will, more in line with their budget. So we definitely were trying to see what we can do to make sure that this follows the design standards of the design committee. And then the use of it will be the same, a Masonic Lodge. So that use that was originally presented back in 2019, I believe, the use and the end user is still the same. It's just a new design and layout.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last note I forgot to make is that as the applicant is noting, this use of a Mason Lodge is an institutional use for the purposes of the CZO and not a commercial use. But now I believe we can open it up to the committee.
Actual base zoning though, what's the zoning for this parcel?
Oh yeah, so that is C1 General Commercial District.
So the use is not necessarily a driving factor when it's the zoning is the driving factor. Is that correct?
Sorry, Danny, you kind of cut in and out.
I was just saying that the zoning itself is what drives it, not what the use on the land is. It's what the zoning is. It's what drives it. Did that help?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, you could kind of say the general use categories if it's commercial, institutional versus residential. But yeah, that's generally correct.
So since we're on the site plan and before you get to the architecture, I don't know if you can pull up the one that I approved before. You don't have to, but I was under the impression that parking is not allowed in the front. And so with the site plan that we've been given to review, one of the glaring deficiencies is the installation of street trees. And I sent a message to Jose about that earlier. And, I think it's just a matter of not knowing that it was supposed to happen. I know it was a different design team before. So between the property line and the curb, that's the area where the new street trees need to go to count as for the number. And so you're going to have a number of trees required for Florida Avenue, for St. Bernard Avenue, and for Fry Place. So I think the quantity on that previously approved plan was just the minimum quantity required.
Okay, so what I will do is probably revisit with Jose and have him revise accordingly. And we'll go from there and get that resubmitted.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the effect is going to be, some of it's going to change in terms of the placement of the trees. So I wouldn't have Jose do the work yet. I know he's on here. But so the next question to solve is this parking allowed in front? Which I remember we went through several discussions with this project. And I know we're not reviewing those past designs, but they do set the precedence for this very parcel and for this very use and for this very building of we didn't allow parking in the front before, so why would we allow it now? It's the same CZO.
Is there anything in the code? I guess I'm looking to see if anybody in the design committee can show me in the code where parking isn't allowed. Now, again, because we have I understand about the 2019 project, but I'm looking for anything in the code prohibiting that. Is there a section that we can look at or something in the zoning that states no parking is allowed? Or is it, just to start the conversation, then maybe have a variance request. Again, hearing this saying, hey, that's why they didn't do it in 2019, that I understand that. But I'm trying to understand where in the code or, something in writing from the city, an ordinance or something that says parking is prohibited. If you could provide that to us, that'd be great.
Joseph is your planner and can provide that with you. I don't know what the actual number is, but I know that's been an issue before. So,
Joseph,
well,
did you say the code? Yeah, I cited the code and am trying to share a direct link to that section. It is kind of buried in Article 22, but it is section 22.8b2, and I think, yeah. So that's the citation, and that will kind of push the building forward and definitely affect parking. So I'm trying to hold my tongue, but based on this regulation, I could envision serious site revisions.
Okay. Understandable. I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
And so I'll go ahead and move us to the building, if at least the elevations that have been submitted, if any committee members want to talk about that, or of course the site design as well.
I ask a couple more questions about site while we're still on it? Just a very general.
Sure.
What is the intent of the fencing? I wasn't really clear if the different types of fencing were enclosing the site or if they were merely meant as a decorative element.
I don't know if Jose is on or.
The silt fencing?
No, there is. I'm looking at the landscape plan and I see a decorative fence in the front of 4-inch. Is that what it is? A silt fencing, 4-inch decorative fence?
It's a decorative fencing, correct. In the rear is a solid fencing. Across the front of the parking is when the parking is in the front, I had put a decorative fence, a 4-foot decorative fence.
Okay, so it's not meant to enclose or provide any type of security in the front.
Correct. It's just along the front of the parking lot and on the sides where it opens into a freight place. And I put it along the rear side. That one is a full-size fence, 8 foot high, to block it from the neighbors.
Okay, and going back to the decorative fence, I was trying to look and see if you had a specification or a standard for it. And I'm sorry, I wasn't able to find it, but is there a type of fencing, some kind of reference to the type and material?
No, but I can provide that.
Okay, so finishes and stuff like that would be helpful. And then
Okay.
Danny, just piggybacking on the landscaping in general, public sidewalks. I'm looking at the landscape plan and there are existing sidewalks that potentially should be completed the entire perimeter of the site. Is that something that is a priority from your end? Do you think that as well?
That's really more a question for Lewis, but I think one of the issues is you have to kind of look and see what it would be connecting to. Since there's very little, I guess on the Fry Place side, it would make more sense because there could be some street parking, but I don't think that you can really park on the St. Bernard and Florida Avenue sides.
Right, yeah, it's a kind of a tricky site, and the landscaping did seem somewhat taking cues, but I wasn't really certain how it was taking cues. And now looking at the previous project and now addressing the parking issue, I think I understand a little bit better how this plan ended up here. But I am seeing two public sidewalks that basically just end at the middle of two locations within the site. So it would be great if they could at least be completed. It would probably make sense to me. Anyway, that's just a general comment. We can move to architectural now.
Yeah, I'll just say from DPW's stance, certainly I think the sidewalk along Florida should be for the whole length of the site. Frey should arguably should be for the whole site, and should really at least be connecting to that site sidewalk from Frey, I would think, through the landscaping. I don't know why you would have that gap there from the sidewalk to the site like that.
Well, I think part of the issue is that since Fry Place dead ends into the post office parking lot, it's kind of hard to, like, not making excuses, but it's kind of hard to justify it. But I think that would change given the location of the building, assuming the building's going to change. And then there is no connecting sidewalk along Florida Avenue, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, on Florida, there's a gap with the post office. They didn't build a sidewalk in front, but if you go to the other side of the post office along Florida, where it's residential, there is a sidewalk that terminates. So that post office would be the facility that doesn't have the continuous sidewalk linking back to the neighborhood.
Right,
So
it stops at Portage.
it does. So maybe if, at least on Florida, it could aspire to want to reach towards a residential neighborhood one day.
Yeah, I think the Florida, you got to do it. I mean, just because you have one property that has a gap in the sidewalk, doesn't mean you don't put a sidewalk in. If it's just that much less people have to walk in the grass. Right. Yeah, for Frey, I mean, like I said, I think it's probably debatable. I'll leave that up to safety and permits to figure that out. But like I said, the public sidewalk should at least connect to the site sidewalk around the building, wherever that ends up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I think it will get resolved with the building relocation, because then you're right there at it. It's a short little connection point. So
yeah,
I agree with that.
And Joseph pointed out that the building would need to be shifted because of the parking between the front property line and the structure, but also in the commercial districts, the front yard cannot exceed 20 feet. So you'd at least have to be provided 20-foot setback from St. Bernard Avenue.
it may be where, looking at it in terms of the size of the building, and I know we haven't talked about the architecture yet, but, even the layout, the placement of the building, if you're at that 20 feet, you may have to use that public sidewalk as part of your perimeter sidewalk around the building, just to allow for the right amount of space. Can we look at the architecture now, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I'm shifting over to that, I will say that, if the applicant is having trouble getting to that 20-foot maximum front yard setback, I will say that things like canopies and kind of those covered porch areas could help in meeting that. So architecture.
What's the requirement for glazing, windows in the on each side on a corner property?
So, as it relates to the building design standards, the transparency of 50% is only for newly constructed commercial buildings, which just doesn't classify. So anything beyond that is probably a safety and permits question.
Okay.
But even though it isn't required by the ordinance, that, I understand there are financial constraints. This building has very small window to wall ratio. And I feel like not, giving that back to the streetscape in terms of design. So I hope that there could maybe be some.
Eleanor, we can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
So that's much better.
Okay, so I'm worried about the low window to wall ratio. Even if it's not required by the zoning, I think that, there needs to be some sort of something
Daylighting.
with this building at the front elevation, at the very least.
Okay. We definitely have the two rooms and offices, because those back rooms are conference rooms, if you will, almost that. If you look at the floor plan, I could definitely go with the owner about adding light in there, but I think it's kind of like more of a ballroom-esque, where if you have that, it kind of defeats the purpose of it, having glazing on that. But then also looking, I'm seeing these documents about the previous design. What I understood is that it did not have also windows along that same facade. But the thing is, I understand this is our front facade, this big blue one here, but if you say to the right of that front facade, those are rooms or meeting rooms, and there's no, I guess the purpose of it is not to have light in there, from what I understand from the end user. But I mean, we can visit with them about adding it, but again, just want to point out in the ordinance, just if it's required, I know that's what I want to be able to let them know or not. But we do have it in the offices, like you see on that first floor plan to the left. We have it all along the library, the front entryway, not in the restroom, of course, and then the second floor, as much as we can, along that way as well.
Right, the previous design had some, things going on architecturally that, the lack of windows was sort of made up for with, design gestures and massing changes. But what we have here is just a box with very few windows.
Well, I can definitely get with the owner, but I also know they were. Go ahead.
No, so one thing I think we can potentially negotiate on is the idea that of clerestory or transom windows up above, right? You're starting to establish this on the front elevation, and I think if that language is carried through to even the conference rooms, that could create potentially nice, or elevate the quality of those spaces. Eleanor also alluded to this, that the building is currently a box, and the EC enhancement corridor design district standards as well kind of seek to avoid blank walls for massive stretches. So the degree that, and we can enumerate this as needed, but the degree that architectural gestures, to pick up from what Eleanor said, can be made that add undulation to the facades, that add architectural interest, that avoid blank walls, is what this committee would like to see and what would promote better urban design.
Okay, I appreciate that. We'll do just that. We'll work on revising the elevations accordingly.
What is the material of the?
The material is a metal paneling with stone veneer on the bottom.
And is it a corrugated metal paneling?
Yes, ma'am. And one thing we tried to price was between corrugated or actual panels that are 24 by 48, and just actually having those. But the cost of metal is just becoming a bit ridiculous right now.
I have
And,
one
and I
suggestion to
think-
help with that.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you want to save a little money because of metal, you're talking about metals. And Lewis, I know, not Lewis. Anyway, the fencing, the decorative fencing out front, I think you're gonna get rid of that when you move the building. So that'll help save some money. Just FYI.
All right.
Going back to the metal cladding, is that tell me about the color choice. Is that an integral color to the material? Is that a manufactured finish on it?
The color can be anything on the manufacturer end, but that is an owner requested color.
And you would be able to have a sample of it if we needed to look at it.
100%. So if there's a request for an actual sample, we can definitely provide you that with that color.
Is what's on is the roof a flat roof, or is this a parapet wall and then there's kind of sloping and whatever? Is it a parapet wall or is it an actual flat roof?
It is actually sloped with a parapet so we can hide our units. And that's how we're getting there. So it will be a parapet, typical. It will have a slope roof, but it'll be hidden by the parapet on the front elevation and all side elevations. So that way the units aren't shown on the street on any side of the building.
How are you evacuating water from the roof? Are you going to have gutters?
Internal roof drains that go through the walls and out.
Okay. Well, just to reiterate what Eleanor said earlier, I mean, this is a box, basically. It's a blue box. So I'm looking through the plans. I'm trying to see for as well some kind of architectural element that defines it a little bit better. Is that a canopy over the main door, a protruding canopy? I'm trying to find the detail of it in the plans.
No, well, we thought about definitely doing that, and that's why it's there on the rendering, and it's not on the plans. But I think what it is we're going to have to revisit it when we move forward, and then add some more architectural elements and some differentiating elements in the elevation, so that it's not purely flat, that is pushing and pulling, and then give it a little bit more emphasis on the design.
Yeah, wherever you have an exterior door as well. I mean, I just would say on a practical level, without having a canopy over those doors, you're probably going to have problems with rain. But definitely if you could look at the elevations and consider them from every single side that they're going to be visible, at least 3 primary elevations where there's a context either with the neighborhood or from the main avenue or from Florida Avenue, which is an interesting access to view the building. If you could consider aesthetically the impact of this box and try to mitigate a little bit its impact. I think that
will do.
Yeah, I think Miguel, you hit on a point. It's really concerning because I'm thinking back. The main view of this building is coming either on Florida as you turn onto Florida, or when you are coming when you're headed towards the river on St. Bernard. And so that's the elevation we're seeing, which is that north side elevation, and it's just a big blue square. I actually like the color of the building, but this is a perfect location for graffiti. And I don't see this as anything that's going to help. I mean, the one thing that you could do is do some serious landscaping against it. But you know, that's something that you really got to address, because that north elevation is your main facade that everybody's going to see when they're traveling. I mean, that's what stands out. It needs help.
Yeah, and it is a tricky site, but as you're alluding, Danny, landscaping could help mitigate that aspect of it and actually make it into a very interesting design problem to resolve. I mean, I think we all want to see potential in these projects, so we want to maybe promote a different way of looking at the site in context of, you know, the building in context of its site. You have a lot of different vantage points where the building's going to be visible. So it's going to be difficult not to have a level of interesting architecturally. So maybe landscaping is a way to supplement that.
And I can work with that to break it up so that it's not so solid.
And we'll definitely revisit the elevation as well.
I have another question kind of relating to the elevations. And Jose, I think there's some, you could do some really good work in terms of color variation, you know, like seasonal color that would play off of that blue beautifully.
Correct.
One of the things that we always ask is, we're seeing this building as a flat, and is this the actual flood elevation, or is the site going to be built up so that there is no visible stairs or steps are required? Because before, I think there were 4 or 5 steps required to get into the building to get to the flood elevation.
No, our civil's on. I will see if he's going to answer that question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Danny. It looks like it's kind of flat on the site, and it just kind of implies that it's literally on grade, on existing grade, but definitely it needs to meet base flood elevations.
Seneca, do you have your grading plan? Because I know you submitted the grading plan showing how that works.
Seneca's not on, but what base flood elevation? Is there one from the city? It's in FEMA flood zone X, which doesn't come with a base flood elevation.
Isn't that 3 feet? That's something to ask planning or safety and permits.
Yeah, and you could get your surveyor to give you that information as well.
Yeah, you should have a flood elevation circle.
You need to do a benchmark for your building. So that usually tells you what you will be required to elevate at this location.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because I think even though you're in a flood zone X, which I'm in one too, and we had to elevate our house 3 feet.
Yeah, I'm looking on page C2. It says your benchmark is, I think I'm going blind. I can't really see it. It's too small, but the information is in page C2.
Do we have that page here? Can we go to it and see?
Yeah, we have it. Just a sec. Okay, this should be C2.
There it is, down there at the bottom.
Yeah, it's just consistent with what the applicant said. It's flood zone X.
64.1 though. Zoom up to the. It's 64.1. So Joseph, will you zoom in to where the building proposed elevation, like the finished floor elevation is over there?
Here?
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of weird because the survey points are saying 19 and your flood thing says 51.
Well, what's short of it is that something that you need to make sure you're looking into.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, it looks like it's a foot above existing grade, finished floor.
Okay. Well, I will revisit with the civil engineer to ensure that we are the 3 feet above the floodplain.
General question, are you following stormwater guidelines?
Yeah, we're in the process of putting together the stormwater management plan for this site now.
Okay, I didn't see anything specific on that. So that was another general question I had. And I think those are all my questions I had for this morning.
Is there any other further committee discussion?
What's the timing on this project? Because I'm all in favor of postponing or whatever it's called, deferring until we see the revised site plan, because it's going to really affect this whole site.
Well, we'll get started on it. Honestly, I don't know. It'll probably take about at least 3 to 4 weeks to probably get it revised. So I'm not sure that we'll have it before then. But try to get that reworked. But I'm just trying to think of worst case scenarios.
So y'all aren't on like some planning timeline. I'm sorry, I had to answer a phone. I didn't know if y'all just addressed this or not, but
That's correct, Danny. This is just a design review.
okay, great.
You want to make a motion to defer, Danny?
Don't we have to wait for public comments, and then once we have our 5-minute recess, then we come back
Oh,
and then we'll make a
right,
motion?
thank you. I
Yeah.
thought we had our recess already.
Nope.
Alrighty, so if there's no further discussion, this concludes the presentation of dockets. The committee will now recess for 5 minutes and reconvene at 11:27. The digital public comment form is now closed. We will begin the consideration of design review docket 4321, including the public comment portion of the meeting. Joseph, have we received any public comments?
We have not, no.
Okay. At this time, is the committee ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to defer so that the applicant can address the parking placement, public street tree requirements, and architectural revisions as discussed in the meeting, including more glazing and possibly more facade interest in terms of facades facing Florida Avenue and St. Bernard.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion passes. This concludes the May 19th DAC meeting. The next meeting will be in 1 month on June 16th. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, and for the applicant, if you're still on, just note here that the submission deadline is June 3rd for that June 16th meeting. So you don't have 3 weeks, but you do have a couple weeks to get that done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to correspond with you further. So look out for emails from me.
That'd be great. That way, if I need to reach out to any of the team members to get some additional comments before, I don't want it to be the first time you see it is during the meeting. So I would definitely want to work with you guys.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you then.
Oh, thank you.
All righty. See y'all next